you had a look at the premiership later, they're 6 points off fourth place.
They're coming fifth, Buzz.
Yeah, I know they're coming fifth. Yeah. They've beaten the Titans and they've beaten Cronulla, who were dreadful in the second half. What do you mean you got me?
Mate, let Madge have his time to shine.
Well, you know who's turned that club around? Reece Walsh has turned that club around.
No credit for poor old Madge.
Yeah, Madge, good on him. Good on him. What I will say, though, if the Warriors beat them on the weekend, they'll be 8 points outside of the top four. I think there's one side that could possibly win this comp outside the top four, and that is the Penrith Panthers. Yeah. The Broncos, I think it's really exciting that they have come good, but there is a hell of a long way to go in this comp.
Yeah, there it sure is. Ready?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I think they're back for me. I think that's pretty clear after the way they've played the last couple of weeks, Buzz. It's pretty clear that... And you know what was interesting? They looked really fit on the weekend. They ran over Cronulla in the second half. So they're obviously training hard and it's paying off.
All those extras.
Yeah, all those extras, all those army camps.
I'm going to tell you something. If they don't give Payne Haas and Carrigan a rest, they'll fall off a cliff. Yeah. Like, he's played, I think, 16 games in a row. Payne Haas was injured. Like, they couldn't get back on side at some stages and they kept on running them out. If they really want to give the title a shot, which they can, Reece Walsh and Ezra Mam, like, once they get their running threat and they can just jump outside the structure,
they're in a position there, Gordie, where it's hard for them to rest players.
Well, they're going to have to... Listen,
it's hard. You can't when you're struggling.
I'll
tell you who are the
really good point. What did Penrith do on the weekend?
Well, that's true. That's true.
So how hard was that to make?
Good point, Gordie.
They've won 4 comps, though. They've got a bit more luxury.
Get your confidence back.
You got me there, Gordie.
The other bloke who's been a genius at resting Origin players over the years is Craig Bellamy, and you look at the Storm success, they're always thereabouts with a minor premiership. You cannot, with the intensity...
The big boys.
You're both right.
You can't.
But desperate times, desperate measures, right?
Yeah, but
you're both right. I agree. And even I felt sorry for Payne Haas. He's
Payne Haas is
getting
he's got a back injury, that referral pain.
And you guys know this with sports science. You've got to take a long-term approach. Yeah. And it's far more important from rounds 20 to 27 to have them fully fit, fresh and ready to go. And
look at that. Payne Haas ain't looking like that. Payne Haas is not like... Yes, and you know what? What a game he had backing up. But he ain't looking like that. He ain't looking like he's running through. He's not free. He needs a...
There were some masseuses on that harbour cruise, though. And
were there?
A spa bar.
And at the army camps.
Well, it was Anthony Bell's luxury yacht, as I wrote about. And what did they do on Fort Denison? A cultural experience.
I don't know. Maybe they did ice baths.
They lost 3 straight after the harbour cruise.
Come on, give them some credit.
Mate, I'm really happy for them. I seriously are. It's great for the comp. They're playing well. But all I'm saying is... let's wait about 6 weeks.
I agree. The jury's still out, Buzz. The jury's still out. After ducking and diving for weeks, Broncos CEO Dave Donaghy finally faced the music when he appeared on radio yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, I met with Selwyn's management as recently as last week. To be candid, we're probably a fair way apart, but you know, we're not without hope. Having a challenging run at the moment on field, but you know, he'll bounce back, and you know, we're all trying to wrap our arms around him to help support him.
I think you've only got about 300,000 left. That won't keep Selwyn.
I think ultimately, you know, when we're looking at our salary cap hoops, is that there's a pie, it has to get cut up. They're the conversations that we're having internally.
There's all sorts of headlines, there was all sorts of noise about since Michael Maguire has arrived at the Broncos.
I thought a lot of it was a lot of nonsense. We had a challenging run on field. To look at it in isolation is just a little bit narrow for me. We've got Ezra Mam on the sidelines and Reece Walsh gets injured. So we're not where we'd like to be in terms of wins and losses. But certainly there's some positive progress.
Do you believe that the club made the right decision to sack Kevy Walters and to bring Madge in?
We made a decision. It was an incredibly difficult decision, you know, and that's the reality of it. Kevy's a great of our club. He put his heart and soul into the place for 4 years.
But 30 years.
Sorry, Gordie, 30 years. 4 years as a coach and did a wonderful job. But we did feel it was time for a change, and we do feel like it was the right decision.
Yes, this was on Triple M yesterday afternoon. Gordie, you were there, went for about 20 minutes. What did you make of it?
The Selwyn Cobbo one was a little bit funny to me because I think he is the future of the organisation. If you look at the way Katoni Staggs, they've got 2 35-year-old No.7’s, that was a priority, and they signed another hooker, like they re-signed another hooker where they've got 5. And they got this young talent and they leave 300,000, which I think is a little bit disrespectful to a State of Origin player. And I don't think he's lost that much mojo. In my opinion, when I watched him play, when Reece Walsh was out and he went back to fullback, he kept them in a few of those games. But obviously they don't want him. because to offering
Selwyn-
that much money.
Selwyn Cobbo was in Sydney last week or the week before, and he visited the St George Illawarra setup, and he spoke to Coach Shane Flanagan. You know what money he was asking for? They're asking about 650, 700.
That's what he's on now, is he?
And St George were quite keen to do a deal for a little bit less than that, but wanted him this year because they've had injuries in the three-quarter line. I don't think it's going to be happen, but what it does show is how far the Broncos are off the pace with what the kid and the manager are looking for. They're halfway there.
Well, let's be honest, like Dave said there, there's still a chance of keeping him, but really they're not.
No, not for 300.
That's my point, is that...
Not unless they find another 200 or 300 grand, Braith, and clubs are...
Well, that went to Reynolds with the third party to 300, didn't it?
Clubs can do that, right? If they need to sometimes, they just move a couple of blokes and juggle some funds around and they find the money. So, but at the moment, you know, I know, Gordie, you're saying you thought he was good when he played fullback for a couple of games, but they don't need a fullback. And they need him to play well when he's on the wing, and he hasn't been playing well.
The interesting thing is...
And that's why he's in reserve grade, Gordie, and the kid who's come in for him is doing really well.
Maybe he was busted. Maybe he's playing through injuries.
Maybe he is,
Gordie, you talk about the old halves they signed. It's an interesting one, Ben Hunt, because when he comes back from injury, I don't think he's going to play 5'8". I think Ezra Mam's comfortable there and is obviously the future. I'm not sure with that young hooker there, God, who has been going...
Corey Pates?
Yeah, I'm not sure...
I think he's off contract.
Yeah, but
Billy
I'm not...
Walters turned that game.
He did.
When he come on
What
yesterday.
I'm saying
That would
is...
be a big call for him, who he plays out of Pakes and
Well, I think
Billy.
they're trying to move Billy on as well, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is signing Hunt for those 2 years, not necessarily the Reynolds extension, might be what costs Selwyn Cobbo a spot at that club long term.
Yeah.
Well, potentially, but I imagine they're looking at their spine next year as, you know, Ben Hunt at hooker, and he's a pretty good hooker, Ben Hunt. He's probably the best hooker they've got in their roster. Well, obviously Corey's not killing it because they're not re-signing him, Buzz. Because they've obviously made a decision that, as it stands at the moment, Ben Hunt and Billy Hunt, and they've got young Blake Moser in the system who's signed a long-term deal there.
It's nothing against the 35-year-old halfbacks, but the future of the club are not two 35-year-old halfbacks. When they won the Queensland State of Origin with a young 19-year-old halfback, they could sit there and get some experience.
But Gordie, he'll learn off those guys. I mean, he'll learn off those guys, and at some point he'll probably get an opportunity.
Yeah, but it's better playing. It's better getting a taste. And you look at the Roosters now with their young halves. There's no better way to learn as at the coalface.